I am excited to welcome Alex from Blue Meta to the Blockborn podcast. How you doing, sir?
Doing good, doing good. How about you, Matt?
I'm doing pretty well, and I'm just gonna jump right in. We've already been talking for like 10 minutes, so for anyone who's
Yeah.
listening, we're just gonna keep talking. I'm gonna throw a question at you. All right, let's start here. Why should Web3 video games be multiple chains, integrating into multiple blockchains, as opposed to picking one blockchain and only integrating into that? Like, what's the benefit of being multi chain in your view?
I mean, there's the first and major one, which is, you get to target a larger audience. I mean, no matter how you formulate it, until the technology allows it to be interoperable, you are going to need to try and grasp onto that bigger reach. The extra thing, however, that many games forget is also the testing side of things, technology-wise. Each blockchain has its own intricate and underlying technology. You don't know what is the best for you until you've somewhat tested it out. So testing it on multiple blockchains will also allow you to find maybe that hidden blockchain gem that works perfectly well with your game and with the way that you formulate your game. Um, in the future, uh, you know, it won't really matter, hopefully, just because it will be interoperable. And whether you're on Tezos, Ethereum, AVAX, Solana, you will be able to kind of play and interact with other users on different blockchains. But really, in the end, until then, it's all about what works best for you. And I'm a harsh believer in that. I think I think there won't be one big blockchain that wins. There will be blockchains that find their niche and excel in that area. Tezos might be the king for gaming. Polygon might be the king for, well, let's go with layer ones. Ethereum might be the king for DeFi, and the whole financial industry goes on that. Flow might be the perfect one for video, right? Movies might be on blockchain. Uh, Audio might be Solana, right? It's all about those niche little areas, just like you have in real life, and that is the best way to kind of develop a product. I think all of these blockchains today are trying to be the one and only king in the future. The best thing they can do is figure out what works for them, stick to that, excel in that. You can't excel in everything. You have to learn to kind of concentrate on one single aspect.
Yeah. There's a lot. There's a lot of points there. That was like a great like overview. We could spend like a whole hour just on the things you just said in the first
Easily.
2 minutes. Yeah, that was great. That was great. That's how people know we were talking before. You don't do that on the first. That was like question number five. So he's warmed up. Um, okay, yeah. So let me break this down. So in the future, it'll be easier to be on all or many chains, and by being on multiple chains at first, you are able to find your niche, and then maybe you'll know better which one to focus on based on what actually works for you, your developers, your product, your community, etc.
Absolutely.
Now, here's something that
Absolutely.
immediately comes to mind. We're just jumping right into it, and I love it. So let's go down this path. What what do people do about this? There's a challenge here. It's easier when you're starting, I think, in my experience, it's easier, more affordable, simpler to pick one and start there, right? Now, there's multiple chains could be EVM compatible. There are things that could help with this, but generally, uh, like just think about something simple-ish like minting an art NFT. I
Yeah.
mean, minting on 10 different chains would mean having 10 times as much stuff to mint or having much more complicated compared to just like, okay, I'm going to mint a few of them on Ethereum or Tezos or wherever and start there. Community wise, it's a lot of people, which is more reach, but it's also a lot when you're starting. So I guess it's a bootstrapping, a 0 to 1 kind of question. How does a project, maybe some of the answer here is blue meta. I mean, I'm not trying to give you a softball, maybe I am, but how does a project start multi chain when it seems like it would be a lot easier to start with one and then expand, which is kind of the opposite of what you suggested?
Right. I think so. Why would it be harder? Right. Today, the technology is not pushed hard enough to make it so easy, right? We can align ourselves on that. In 1 year, it would be a very different conversation. Today, Blue Meta that is trying to go multi-chain, let's take that as an example, it takes a lot of effort. We don't just pop up a new aggregator and a new solution in 3 days or in a week. It actually takes months and months of work. Now, it does cost a lot of money and a lot of effort for a project to go multi-chain. I think that is very clear. However, if you're talking about NFTs, it's not that expensive actually. It's quite literally the same. You're just tapping into a different style. And then based on that, there are solutions out there, launch pads, marketplaces, all of these that can facilitate it. So today, if you, Matt, want to do a collection of 10 NFTs on each blockchain for the fuck of it,
Right.
it would not be that hard. It really wouldn't.
Well, coming up with the material, if from a
Excluding
business
the material.
person, what was that? What is that?
Excluding the material. Imagine you have a
Excluding the
collection,
material. Okay. But that's the thing. The
right?
material is a pretty big part, right? Like if you're telling me that, and let's just imagine hypothetically, let's do something that I don't do, so it's not attached, just so it doesn't get weird. Let's say I'm a sculptor. I'm doing sculpting, which is not real, right? And I have photography of my sculpting, and that's the NFT. Like, it seems that's exactly the part that's very tricky in that scenario. Just for example, is like doing 10 times as many sculptures, and this is a very basic way of looking at it, but 10 times as many sculptures seems like 10 times as much work of the core thing. It's like asking, Jimi Hendrix to write 10 times as many songs. He might be able to write a few more if you tell him it's crunch
Yeah.
time. He is Jimi Hendrix, but 10 times as many is like, well, it doesn't scale that way necessarily, right? There's definitely got to be solutions to this, but that's just a roadblock that I see when I think about it.
What about if Jimi Hendrix, you know, since we're on that, releases an album just called Blockchain, and each of his songs, each one is on a different blockchain.
Yeah, that would make more sense to me if it was the same
You you you
material.
you, you could then
Yeah.
see, all right, in the song, how's the audio quality? Are there discrepancies between each of them? How can I store that file? Is it harder on song number 3 that's on this blockchain than song number 5 on the other one? All right. How about sending it to friends,
Well, that gets
sharing it?
nerdy too. Not to interrupt, but like then it depends. That's more on IPFS and those solutions, right? So
Of course.
in theory, I guess it's how the app would be coded, and then which hosting solution the app is resolving to, and like with IPFS and probably other stuff, getting deep in the weeds. It's like, is it pinned? How many times has it been loaded already? Then it gets deep in the weeds there.
But then Jimi Hendrix suddenly has a benchmark. He's gone through that tedious process, right? And he has a benchmark. All right, you know what? Blockchain ABC didn't work very well. DEF wasn't that bad, but the big winner was blockchain G, right?
Mm-hmm.
Clearly, that was perfect for me. For my situation, my scenario, it was perfect, right? But he couldn't, if he had just started with A and then gone into B and then gone into C, it would have taken him a lot of time. But instead, with one single release, he managed to benchmark the whole area. Right.
Yeah,
Um,
it makes
I
sense.
think that's something that projects can do. It's just a lot of effort. So I think there's gonna be bigger entities that are gonna do that, right? And these bigger entities are probably already doing it, and that's where I think they're gonna somewhat see. All right, you know what? Blockchain G, great for sharing. Blockchain A, fantastic for creating the artwork on the album itself, blockchain, etc., etc., etc. And so to come back to the original question, which was, you know, how hard is it to go multi-chain, and why should games even go multi-chain? Um, well, it really depends on your convictions. Do you want to be niche, an indie game, kind of has its very, very curated and loyal followers, or are you trying to be more of a all around highest reach? In which case, of course, like the project, I think it's Exomon, uh,
Yeah.
who did one set of NFTs on Ethereum, the next on Polygon, the next on Solana, and the next one's going to be on BSC. And they're kind of trying to unite all the worlds and all that. Um,
Yeah,
is
it's
that what you want
interesting.
to do?
Like when I
Then
hear
it's
that, my intuition as a gamer, having put in like thousands of hours into Web3 games, when I hear that, I hear like it drives fear internally of like, okay, so is that going to devalue stuff, putting out that many? I don't know. So here's the trend so far, which you might just be seeing beyond it. But people generally want projects to commit to one ecosystem, and at least in the current environment. So, for example, I'm trying to think of a good example. Like, well, just tribalism, like maximalism, is pretty common. Like, if you
Yeah.
go to Twitter, every blockchain, whether it's Tezos, whether it's Cardano, whether it's Solana, whether it's Bitcoin, Ethereum, many others like Avalanche, there's so many where everyone is very, all the stuff that gets the most attention in that ecosystem is the kind of like rah rah, our chain is best. Uh, but I don't know. I guess I can't come up with like a cohesive argument against it. As long if it was the same amount of NFTs total, then I guess the value in theory, the biggest friction right now would just be switching from token to token. I guess maybe, but
How about I counter argue? I
yeah, please.
counter argue myself and you at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, do you remember when Halo dropped?
Yeah. I mean, that's a long time ago. Yeah.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
Remember how it was only available on Xbox,
Mm-hmm.
right? By God, if you told any of those Xbox players that Halo was thinking of allowing PS players, all hell would have been broken loose. They were maxis, right? And same for PS, if it had dropped on PS and vice versa, right? And then, oh, the PC came in. Then they're like, no, we want to play those games. Xbox went, fuck you, no. PS went, fuck you, no, right? And you already had the three biggest niches in gaming split up in three, right? And then it came in mobile, right? Today,
Yeah.
if you take the latest,
Now it's
if you
like,
take the latest
yeah.
Halo, an
Yeah.
example, is it not interoperable in between all of those platforms?
Yeah. It is.
It really is, right?
Yeah.
And of course, in the early games, there was cannibalism and maximalists, and that's normal. That's because people are very passionate about a new technology and something where they feel part of. It is the essence of how gamers are. They are part of something, and they love that. And because they share like-minded thoughts and like-minded passions around them, that heightens it. So today we are in the stage in blockchain of Halo just came out on Xbox, right? Other platforms, other products such as PS and computers have realized that Halo is out and kind of want a piece of that. But the Xbox players don't want to. But in the end, it will be interoperable. It just doesn't make sense for it not to.
Well, there's
You're
both right
excluding.
now. There's both, right? Because you do have things like Mario Bros. Is still Nintendo exclusive. It's not even on PC.
Mhm.
Uh, Examples, I don't know, like Demon Souls was PS5 only. Some FromSoft's game, the Elden Ring and Dark Souls series, I think those are still like very successful. So I do feel like there are some games are massive cross-platform, but some are certainly still like it seems like we have a mix of both right now.
Well, you want to look at the you don't want to look at niche scenarios in that case.
Mario's not
If you
niche
take,
though. What is niche? I'm for real, like honest question, like not trying to be
Mhm.
argumentative, but Mario is the
No,
opposite of
go ahead.
niche. He's the
I mean
character.
Mario, I'd be curious to see, and I can look it up right now if you want.
Yeah, look up Mario Odyssey
Where
last.
do you think Mario Bros fits on the most played game?
I mean, I think it's indisputable that like Mario Bros is still, well, I don't know. I mean, do you dispute that Mario is like the number one video game character? Like it's the Mickey Mouse of video games. Like Mario is
Yeah, yeah, definitely,
I,
definitely.
I mean, I got to look up just the sales for Super Mario Odyssey. That's the last mainline Mario game because I feel like dude, it sold 19 million copies. But I mean, I guess like I don't know, Fortnite, I'm sure, or like games like that would have hundreds of millions potentially. I don't know what's the
I think
highest selling game.
Call of Duty did 20 something million on the first day.
Yeah, I mean that is a lot. But it's also a
So
different kind of game, I suppose. Like, what about single player games, right? Because this is a single player game. I don't know if that matter. Like,
look at The Witcher. Look at
how many sales does The Witcher have? I guess. But I mean, your point is clearly, yeah. If it's hundreds of, if it's that many on the first day for Call of Duty, I mean, it does make a pretty good point.
1 billion The Witcher
1 billion sales.
downloads in total.
1 billion downloads, and it's available on PC and on. A good way to do it. We don't have to get. You don't have to get too stuck on this. A good way to do it would be comparing, like, for example, Demon Souls remake, which is PS5 exclusive, compared to like Elden Ring,
Right.
which was PC, and they're both by the same. You know what I mean? They're both like same company, similar time. We don't have to do it right now, but I guess that would be like an example of. But nah, your point is taken. I mean, the more places you're available, the more people can use the thing. The only thing that seems to not follow that trend is sometimes, and I think you're right now. So now I'm just kind of like running out of things. But I guess the one time I've seen is for small creators. For example, you mentioned before we started that you used to Twitch stream. If someone's a streamer, right? There's a big
Mhm.
difference between having, maybe there isn't at least, but perception would often be, and in my experience, it feels like there's a big difference between having, let's say, just very, very small, like someone who's doing it as a hobby, let's say 10 viewers, right? 10 in Twitch chat is a certain vibe. 3 in Twitch, 3 in YouTube, 2 on Facebook, and 2 on Twitter can seem like not sticky anywhere. Like, you go to a stream with 10 to 20 people that your friends do, and there's a chat, there's a little bit of activity, you might hang out. Whereas if your friend's streaming to one person, you might just awkwardly not want to click on it. If I'm just honestly, discussing how humans work, like,
Of course.
but maybe the answer is it doesn't really matter, because when you have 10 viewers, it's just you're not really you need 100 viewers. Like, the problem isn't how many platforms like, there's a lot of ways I can imagine arguing against that. It does seem like on a community level, like what I do for Blockborne, I'm community manager. It seems easier to cultivate a community potentially in one place, but that might just mean that you advertise everywhere, but you have a hub that's one place where that core, like, I don't know. It seems like it's hard. You can get spread too thin
I
potentially when
see.
you're starting.
I see what you mean communication wise, right?
Right.
Communication wise, the most important is have one central point of communication. It makes information easier to be spread. It makes simply maintaining the community engaged easier, right? Uh,
That's like Discord
but
for a lot of projects. It's like a central place, but then you feed there from YouTube Shorts, TikTok, Instagram, etc. Instead of just all I do is tweet, which is also okay. But like the multiple will probably drive more traffic. That, if I'm understanding, that's your whole point, basically.
yeah,
It makes sense.
exactly. So in the end, today, if you need to either look ahead, and we're talking 2 3 years ahead, until then, kind of just dig in there and kind of do with what you can the best possible,
Yeah,
which is
there's two
stick on the product.
questions. There's two questions here. I'm gonna take what you're about to where you're going. I'm gonna ask a question that relates to this, just to clarify. I think there's
Mhm.
two areas. One question is, uh, how does this topic that I now am convinced you're correct, so you've convinced me. So the more distribution, the better, basically. Which, I mean, when I say it that simply, how I don't know why I ever argued against it. It seems pretty obvious. More distribution is better. So let's say that's true. Which, because blockchain people are tribal, so they sometimes don't think that way. Let's say that's true. We think of blockchains as distribution channels.
Yeah.
Okay. Then what should a person with no resources do with that? And then separately, what should like a business? I mean, like, we're part of Misfits Gaming. We're a part of a big organization. So what should, like, businesses like us, where there's pretty good funding, you're part of a larger group, what do they want to do? Whether it's a game studio, a platform, whatever. And then separately from that, what should the person who's just starting do? Either one of those, I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on, like how to apply it.
Well, I'm trying to relay it, with actually in real world stuff, right? If you're, let's take the first example. You're a small entity. You're 2 or 3 guys. Uh, you've got an idea. You want to develop it, right?
Yes.
First question would probably be, which blockchain do you choose, right? Or should we go on all blockchains, right? I would be foolish to say go on all of them.
Okay.
It would truly be a dumb suggestion. I would say choose one, find your niche, and from there, develop. Right? Use the tools that are at your disposal. In today's technology, developing cross chains takes a lot of resource, a lot of time, a lot of manpower. Right?
Right.
Now, let's go into the you're an entity, you have funding, you're big enough. Many would think, I'd say go straight into multi-chain. No. Again, start somewhere. Lay the foundation.
Here's a
Once
question
you've
then
laid the foundation,
with this. Imagine hypothetically, you can shut this down if this is an awkward one. I don't think you have any relationship with them. What would Illuvium do, right? So they're immutable X heavy. Just like to pick a random one to get really specific.
yeah.
They're immutable X. They're committed to that pretty hard on at least so far, the narrative. Like, what, and the same would be true for, let's say, Townstar on Gala Games, or any game where it's very Splinterlands on Hive. They've actually done some multi-chain integrations, which maybe we can get into. What is a game that's very strongly associated with one chain? Gods Unchained on Immutable X, like any of these examples. What do they do then, where they're already
Well,
deep on one chain?
well, the first question you want to go is it
Tezotopia.
working well?
Sorry,
You
I
know,
can't stop.
Is it working well? If it is, you don't necessarily have to change. We come back to the full circle in the beginning. Each chain will have its own niche existence, its own niche area where it excels. So if let's take the example of Illuvium. If Illuvium build on Immutable X, right, and everything works perfectly, stay there. Now let's take the scenario where suddenly Polygon is more interesting, more technologically advanced, and better suited for gaming. What do they do then? Well,
Yeah.
I'm going to be very frank. Bridge, go there. There is no need to go down an alleyway that just does not fit what you're trying to do.
A game as
Look at
big as that, if they're
doesn't
that
matter.
big.
Look at Sandbox.
Okay.
Look at what they did. They
They
changed.
migrated to their own chain, right?
Well, to Polygon, yeah.
Or to Polygon. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was a big step. What if, what if tomorrow, take this example, right? Now you're going to have to tell me if it's going to be uncomfortable.
Okay.
What if Blockborne becomes the leader of esports on Tezos? What if they are the go-to and biggest player on Tezos, right?
Right.
And they start getting all of these games on other chains going like, guys, we need you. We need your solution. Are they going to go, nah, sorry, guys, we're Tezos only? Or are they going to start thinking of ways to bridge there and go, you know what? What if we go there?
Right.
And then
right.
maybe discover, oh, wow, wait, this technology works pretty well with one part of our business, not the other, though. And then develop mostly that part there.
Another way it could
really
play out.
about.
Another way it could play out would be that we become the premier option for everyone on other chains when they do integrate to Tezos. And so basically, that could be enough. I mean, that could be a huge. If you imagine Tezos as a top 5 chain 10 years from now, and gaming as what it is, you can imagine that being a huge pie that doesn't. Maybe that could be our stack kind of also, or alternatively, there's some. I can imagine the scenario you're laying out for sure. I can see the logic.
Let's take your scenario, right? Tezos is like the underdog, right?
Right.
That is proving itself over and over to actually be the biggest contender to build games on, right? Then
Right.
you guys are suddenly on the perfect chain, right?
We're happy.
But nothing will ever be 100% perfect for you because you're gonna want to grow, and at some point you're gonna grow to a point where what you're doing isn't kind of aligned with your other core businesses. If Facebook just stayed a kind of website to be social on, they would have gone down under years ago.
Right.
Instead, they developed Facebook ad networks. They developed Meta. They developed R&D. They developed all of these things, right?
For sure.
And they grew. Now, Blockborn, as an example, will at some point grow. Will at some point have different uh, branches.
Right.
Those branches won't necessarily be based on the same things as they did before, and therefore, maybe Tezos is perfect for what they were doing for their, you know, first product and their core product. But at some point, they're going to need a tool or a blockchain that will be better suited for that need, for that branch. And that's where will you just stay, on Tezos or go onto a different blockchain, even though it's the best thing for gaming. But you're
Well,
going into DeFi, right? Are you going to stay on Tezos?
we're just so focused right now, I think, on building out like the world
It's a
class.
hypothetical. It's a hypothetical. I'm not saying the actual reason, but let's assume 3 years from now
It's too
you are.
fancy though. I can't. I'm not. This is like maybe if I was. To me, it's like I take your point, right? But I see it as in a world where your point is that there's a lot of ways where after enough time there's just like bigger opportunities to expand to more chains than just being on Tezos. I think in a world where I imagine like okay, Call of Duty integrates into Tezos and they put a bounty on Blockborn, stuff like that. I mean, there's just so much room, like for the biggest games in the world to be using Blockborn from where we are now in our like very earliest stages that I feel like this is where if we communicated to the Tezos community, right, that are and I understand hypothetical far future, but at the same time we're building now in the real world. If I communicated that like our process is to hopefully expand to other chains, I mean, people would not be excited about that compared to the idea, which I do find compelling, of representing Tezos basically in the gaming ecosystem over the next 3 to 5 years, because that's, I mean, part of what makes. So there's multiple things, right? There's the fundamentals of the blockchain, and this gets into a question that I wanted to explore with you anyway, which is basically how do you distinguish which blockchains are good versus bad? Because there's a huge spectrum, and at some point you get into actual scams, and then at some point there's purists who only like one or two. And so where to draw that line is a tough question for sure. One of the factors for me for sure is just the actual objective quality of Tezos on a governance level, decentralization level, and like sort of technological level. Other blockchains may have concerns. A lot of people have pointed out, and we're not going to need to debate on it, but just like Solana having a lot of downtime. I mean, even quite recently during the bear market, going down
Yeah,
again.
5 days ago.
So there's a lot of things where, and there's plenty of examples, and people could then try to throw stones at Tezos. I don't want to do that. I want all the blockchains to build. I really do. But there are
Yeah, yeah.
reasons, there might be reasons to be motivated to push gaming on one platform over another, right? And I do genuinely, perhaps by good luck, because I have nothing to do with us being on Tezos. That decision was made before I was on the team. But I do genuinely, I was very happy when I heard that they were going to partner with Tezos, because I had I was in conversations with them about what they were doing before that decision was made. At least I talked to Will a few times. When he said Tezos was the choice, I was very excited because I did know Tezos had such a reputation for being a good blockchain and the quality of the art. Point being, not to try to convince me of anything, but rather turn it to a question here. I'm a little bit rambly today. How do you distinguish, like, where is the line? At what point would a blockchain not be worthy as a distribution channel? Even you said to try to integrate into all chains would potentially be a bit unrealistic and or whatever. You said it'd be dumb potentially. So where do you draw that line? How do you distinguish? How do you assess a blockchain? Some thoughts on that would be awesome.
A jam-packed question,
Oh yeah.
and I tread very, very carefully. No, no. How do you choose the best blockchain? So you've got to first start with what are you doing, right? What is your business model? What is your project? Let's take an example of that I know, Blue Meta. Why did we start on Tezos, right? I'm going to be very upfront. The rest of my team knew a lot about Tezos and liked Tezos. I did not know Tezos at all. I was a lot on Ethereum, on Solana, as some may know. I even dabbled a lot on Cardano, but I knew nothing about Tezos. Now I came here, and I'm like, oh wow, this is first few weeks were rough. They were, but then I discovered, and I learned more about it, and I realized that okay, as a project, it was a smart move to start on Tezos. It is niche. The technology is well balanced. Is it still in terms of uh, speed and efficiency behind the other chains? Yes, but that's just because the amount of TVL on it is lower. The more people come, the more they develop things on it. So how did we choose it? Niche industry, uh, passionate people behind it, an area that was open to test, an area that wouldn't directly shoot you down for trying new things, right? That's very important, and that's a quality that Tezos has today. Um, a technology that's constantly developing and doesn't have big security issues. Why didn't we start on Solana? There are big security issues on Solana. There really are. We built a bridge. Why did we build the bridge on Tezos and not Solana? Security again, and we know how bridges are bad security wise.
That's the new meta. Bridges are bad now, but it's still very important.
Of course, we, for example, build the bridge for the metadata, not really for the NFT, but that's a whole different subject. So we chose it on a preset of parameters that we felt were important. We then put that and went, okay, once that's done, are they still valid? Once the project has developed, are they still valid? Then we went, well, not really, because we evolve as a company. The market evolves, right? So what's next? Do we just leave Tezos and then go on to another one? No. We keep the fundamentals, we keep our birthplace, we continue developing there. But then, from what we learned there, we can try and apply it on another blockchain. Now, which one we choose next? Is it, Ethereum, because it's where there's the most money, because there's the highest spenders, there's the most developed. That could be very compelling business-wise. Utility-wise, is it the smartest on a 6 to 8 month length? We see that more and more games are straying away from Ethereum and going to the layer 2s. There's a reason it's called fucking gas fees.
Yeah,
right?
it seems essentially impossible to build a game on L1 Ethereum now, or certainly at least anytime we're in the conditions like 2021. I mean, right now it's kind of nice now. It's like compared to last year, it feels so only $3, nothing. Click, but it'll go back, even with the merge, even with the new stuff.
I mean, the merge is not supposed to. It's going to be another 5 years, and then it's going to be delayed, and then there's going to be so many different things that come
Well,
in.
dank sharding, right? Proto dank sharding actually reduces fees. This is all, yeah. Sorry, complete side note. My bad.
But so it goes kind of full circle as to how we choose the blockchain. It's
Yeah.
based on your needs today, but also projecting them 1 year ahead. What needs will you have then?
Is it fair to think, going off what you said, is it in the early stages, is this a Pareto principle, an 80-20 kind of thing, where your first chain, at least if you pick right, or at least with guidance, if your first chain can kind of be like the home base for a while, that might be, maybe the market tells you otherwise, but initially it's like that's your 80%, and then you distribute elsewhere with like a little bit of your time and energy and put out feelers, kind of? Is that the model? So if you're on Tezos first, your face says no, but now you're nodding it politely, so let's see.
No, because I was thinking in the same time, and
It's
you were
okay.
right.
Yeah.
You were right. So it's not exactly the Pareto principle. However, where the Pareto principle does apply is community. We
Okay.
will have 80% of our community being on Tezos,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But it has been proven, 90, I think it's 92% of people who have Tezos wallets also have a MetaMask wallet,
For sure. Yep.
right?
Yeah.
So here is a little alpha, if you want, why we also chose Tezos first and then Ethereum and not the other way around.
Okay.
Right? 92% of people of Tezos have an Ethereum wallet. However, 3% of Ethereum have a Tezos wallet.
Right,
So
right.
you're going against the tides by trying to educate. Right? Whereas if we have a community that is willing to go with us onto different chains, not to leave it, right, but to incorporate them, we can then educate that way. Then it's not hostility; it's just pure education.
It's the missionary model, basically. Like Axie is big on.
It's a model that has been used a lot to prosper from. In all honesty,
Maybe a better word than missionary, but like having people who are true believers and word of mouth, grassroots would maybe be another way to think of it. Maybe.
I mean, think of it this way: when Solana made the step towards Ethereum,
Mhm.
it was through OpenSea doing it with Solana, right? Incorporating Solana to their platform.
Right.
That was a mess, right? Nobody in Ethereum wanted Solana, and nobody in Solana wanted Ethereum, right?
Right.
What bridged that big gap? What is the one factor that makes it that today Solana users have a MetaMask wallet, and most MetaMask users have a Phantom wallet, a project. It was one project that reunited them both.
OpenSea in this case, or no? Was it a different one?
No, it wasn't a marketplace. It wasn't a platform. It was a project. It was OK Bears. Today flopped completely, but whatever. But who cares? The idea is that it was one project that was interesting, and that caught the interest of another community,
Mm-hmm.
right? And now that you have a shared goal, a shared vision, and a shared passion, those fightings, they go down. So the Ethereum suddenly weren't making that much fun about the Solana players because they were busier talking about that project.
Right.
That's what we want to do through Blue Mana. We don't want the Tezos players to go, fuck the Ethereum players, but rather go, hey, have you tested out that game? Have you played that game? Right? Have you actually interacted with this collection? We want the games to highlight the bridge. We don't want our platform to be the highlight of it. It's really why we push the games forward more than actually our product ourselves. So essentially, from your original question of how to choose blockchain, I believe it's really about conditioning and real use case for you.
In your case, you asked your team and they all agreed, so you went with it basically, right?
In my case, yeah.
Not to oversimplify it, but kind of. So ask your friends is also a big part of it. Like if you're getting started and you don't know, it's like any blockchain that you've got 3 to 5 friends on or interested in, like just going together basically is a you know, with so much information too, I guess just more people gives you a more brains, more chance to like cover, the total space of what's happening together as opposed to being focused on like one, like, oh man, Cardano Twitter is lit and then just getting sucked in or whatever.
Yeah, you don't want to be in just an echo chamber of yeses, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Because
Well,
that's what you find a lot.
that's what happens in a lot of smaller blockchains is a strong, because the only voices that get amplified are the positive ones. Well, all right, we got about 4 minutes left here. We are coming up on 11:30. I know we got to get out of here pretty soon. We will definitely talk again. We'll get one with Will as well, which we wanted to do today, so we can have another convo. Have Will join us. He's got a lot of interesting things. He always asks really good questions. As far as today goes, yeah, I mean, do you have any final thoughts? You want to say anything about Blue Meta or anything about, I don't know, thoughts on the current state of crypto or crypto gaming? Or are you satisfied with what you've said and you're just going to drop the mic? I mean, it's up to you.
I'll say one last thing, right? And it's been said over and over. These are times to build. These are not times to try and hype and choose and fight. These are literally times where Just like keep your head down, work on what you're doing, develop something, right? And if it's on Tezos, keep grinding, keep working, reach out if it's a game to Blockborn or Blue Meta, uh, and really just enjoy the silence because oh, it's the one time where you can make correct decisions compared to the bull markets where you will make only wrong decisions.
Yeah, now's the time to learn, and networking right now is way the signal to the noise is incredibly better. So yeah, it's builders market, not bear market. I couldn't agree more. Alex, thank you so much for joining us on the Blockborn podcast. We're getting this thing going. We're doing it. Looking forward to our next conversation.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for being, as usual, such a lovely host.
Woo!